just wanted to say firstly, thank you so much for having me. And I think it's amazing that you have this initiative and people coming from all over the world. And I think I'm really excited to listen to the other speakers as well and learn. So thank you so much. I think quite often when I introduce myself as a Baha'i, that's a concept that's relatively new to people. Quite often people say a Baha'i, what's that? I haven't heard of it before. I appreciate that might not be the case for this group, but just in case there is anybody, I thought I'd just quickly reintroduce kind of what the Baha'i faith is, and then I'll talk a little bit about the activities we do in Leith. So the Baha'i faith is a world religion. We've been around, or it's been around for about 200 years. And I think whilst it's small in overall kind of population of Baha'is, you'll actually find Baha'is in every corner of the world. Maybe not Antarctica. I haven't fact checked that part specifically, but I think, every other country and world you would find a presence of Baha'is. And I would think that actually the impact, and it is really centered around community, kind of far outweighs its size. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And I think there's no nobility to being able to come together with others, and that's why forums like this are so important to try and help change and move the world as well. So the Baha'i faith was founded by our prophet. So we recognize Baha'u'llah in the 1800s, and that was founded in Iran, or at that time modern day Persia. And its fundamental principle is one of unity. So that's one of unity of world religions, unity of peoples, unity of gender, race, nationality, unity, and ultimately the oneness of all of mankind. So one of the quotes that best, I think, reinforces that is that ye are all the leaves of one tree and the fruits of one branch. And as Baha'is, we believe in having a twofold moral purpose as well. So that's to grow ourselves spiritually and also to offer services to humanity as well. So help improve or contribute to the betterment of the world. Which then kind of brings me to maybe how do we do that, and how do we do that practically, and hopefully some of the examples of what we're doing in Leith. But I was just thinking that before joining today, I was asked the question, which is to do with the theme of this, what does kind of community mean to me? And I thought that was quite thought-provoking. And as I was reflecting on that, I was really reflecting on just how embedded community is into the Baha'i language, or the language that I've kind of grown up around, or that I speak with all the time. Because actually the way we are structured, if you like, as a faith is actually kind of broken down by communities. So there are communities all over the world. I would therefore reference myself and say I'm part of the Edinburgh community, and that's just kind of that's naturally what I would say without necessarily always thinking about it too much. And I think Edinburgh is quite big, so then there's kind of sub focuses or localized communities as well, which in my instance is Leith. But it was just it was interesting for me to think back to the fact that community is just something that I've almost been saying or speaking about my whole life. And actually that reflection on the impact that's had, or the importance that's had on my life, actually is one that only really dawned on me so much when actually preparing for this and reflecting on that as well. So I thought that was just really interesting. But what that structure actually means, the fact that we are kind of structured by communities, and I think the practical element for Baha'is of offering service to humanity is to be focused in trying to do that in your local communities, is that actually Baha'is worldwide are following a structure of community building activities, with a view that if we can unite local communities at scale, then you can unite the world. So that's really the far-reaching, but the ambition or the goal of Baha'is worldwide. And that set of activities are Baha'i inspired, absolutely, but they are run by local protagonists within communities. And we'll see some of that when I give some of the explanations of some of the individuals involved or driving the activities in Leith as well. But it's really kind of open for everybody. And the idea is that it's not something that you need to, be a Baha'i to participate in. It's really about focusing on how can you contribute to bettering your community, with that at the forefront. So, as I mentioned before, Edinburgh is quite a big area. So in 2017, some friends moved to Leith, and they actually started setting up these kind of spiritually focused activities in the local area of Leith themselves. And just to give some context as to what those activities are, there are kind of children's classes, a junior youth empowerment program, and then study circles for youth and adults. So Baha'i children's classes, they're typically for children, ages up to the age of 11, and they're based on the teachings of Baha'u'llah. But the content of the classes are really aimed to contribute to the awakening and development of the spiritual nature of every child. So that's by them contemplating materials and actually having, education that's centered around prayers, arts, drama, all these things to, I think, help them in this kind of formative stage of their life. And an example of that could be that one week the children's classes here focus on a human virtue like generosity. And actually they may then have, all the prayers or any reading they do to be also centered around that theme. And the game could be around actually how do you encourage sharing as part of that game? And the dramatic piece could be. So it's really trying to embed those moral structures into children from a young age. And I think also what we've seen is to also help them, I think, even at that age where they are in that most formative stage, and you're easily influenced from birth of everything around you, to start, I think, having the right moral behaviors and moral compass and that sort of thing. And actually we've heard, from some of the mums in the local, from the children in the local classes in Leith, they've shared things with us about noticing actually visible changes in their children as well, and little things about how the children talk about the example I just gave, generosity, but about sharing. And I think the impact actually has been quite profound for a lot of the mothers who've now been, some of the children had started in 2017 are still coming to the classes today as well. So the next part of that program is the Junior Youth Empowerment Program. So that's kind of at their formative years of adolescence. So typically it's for your kind of 11, 12-year-olds to 14-year-olds. And the idea here again is that they can build the strong moral identity required to empower themselves and actually be able to use that to express themselves as well. So holding themselves to that high moral standard, and also now really starting to consider how they can contribute to the betterment of society as well. So there are a set of junior youth texts that are all story-based. So the first one of these is actually a book called Breezes of Confirmation, and it's all centered around, a narrative that showcases how if you make the right efforts in anything you're trying to do, and you also rely truly on God, then you'll be confirmed in that, or perhaps even confirmed away from that, but you will receive the confirmations from God that you need. And I think that's one example. There's actually a series of, I could misrepresent this, but I think 7 or 8 texts now. And I think that all of them, again, they are centered around just general stories. They're not necessarily, again, Baha'i inspired, but they're not Baha'i stories. It's not about, I think, trying to create that box, but it's about just trying to actually share what we believe is needed to bring communities together, and the key role that we believe junior youth can have even from that early age. And then we have the study circles, which there is a set of books known as the Ruhi books that are intended to be the main sequence of courses in a kind of systematic program that aims to enhance the capacity of youth and adults to serve in their community. So youth in this context would be anyone from 15 plus. And, these books can range from subject matters like talking about marriage and how you improve your marriage and your home, and therefore how that feeds into the community. It can focus on the principles by which you need to behave with. The first one, I think it's there's a section on life and death. There's a section on prayer and the creating the right spiritual environment in your home. And I think it's just different things that we believe feed into creating the right environment for a community to succeed and thrive. So in Leith, we have kind of a bit of a routine or a structure of these activities taking place every week. There's children's classes that happen every Friday, junior youth groups that happen every Thursday and Saturday. There's devotionals, which are prayer meetings that happen on Sundays, and then the study circles kind of happen across the week as well, as they're a bit more fluid and flexible. But actually, there's other things as well, because I think that, again, the purpose of all of this is to bring the local community together. And actually, examples we've seen of that are running social action projects within the community. So we've set up a pre-homework club for people to be able to attend and actually get support for the studies for exams and for prelims. In Scotland, so prelims is a new concept to me that I've been learning about. And then I think we've got things like, when the war started between Ukraine and Russia, and actually we came together with the local community and the people in Leith to actually give goods that we could then ship and we could send to people in Ukraine. And I think there's just a number of different examples like that, as well as how do we contribute and participate in other events. So this is one example. There's Interfaith, obviously, in Leith as well. So it's about how do we actually play that role in the community too. And what's been really nice to see is that actually it's not now a kind of a group of Baha'is running all of these activities. There's lots of different people involved. There are people who are children's class teachers who are from Hindu or Muslim backgrounds. There are people from all different nationalities. Some of the mums we have, there's a big Nepalese community in Leith. Some of the mums of some of the children have become children's class teachers. Some of the youth, who are quite often just people we've met in the local vicinity, are now also, working with the junior youth and spending time with them. And we've just found that actually it's become something that isn't now, owned by Baha'is, but it's owned by the community for the community. And I think that's, a really special transition. The only other thing I'd say, and if there's time, we could, or I could always share the link in the chat if not, but play a short clip of a video. But the only other thing we've done is hosted a series of family camps as well. So these are camps where we've actually taken a large section of the community in Leith, so usually about 50 or 60 people, away for a few days. And we spend the time building bonds of friendship with them, but also really deeply thinking about how can we all best serve our community. And I think that moment of focused time, maybe even away from the community, to reflect and have that communal bonding has been really key to creating the right dynamic for the community. And an interesting learning for us is you kind of notice a trend that when you first come back from these family camps, you just notice a trend or a wave of kind of community building activities or things taking place from that kind of moment you've returned that, gradually decreases. And it's kind of like a spiritual gym. I think the more time you spend into it and you start thinking about your community, the more then you have the desire to put momentum back into it. So we have these camps throughout the year, and there's always a natural kind of peak of activity just after those camps as well, which is really interesting. So it just kind of talks to the need to continuously be looking at this, I think. So yeah, we very much have, the activities, but the macro level of all of this is creating the kind of impact in fabrics of friendships and actually within the community dynamics of Leith as well. So there is, a number of examples. Even this week, one of the people involved in the activities was asked by one of the mums of one of the children if they'd go with her to the sick kids hospital. They didn't want to go by themselves, and it was just you see these little things that I think are the blossoms or the fruits of, I think, the labours of the activity as well.